All right, thanks very much for attending, everybody, and thanks for inviting me to present at this virtual showcase. Today, I'll be talking about the transformation of geological sciences and geological engineering field methods to remote delivery using both hands-on and virtual tools in fall 2020. So the course code for geological and geological engineering field methods is GEOE/L221. And the calendar description for this I've presented here. And it's the engineering field study of surficial deposits, rock types, and geological processes based on the geology of the Kingston area. Descriptions, samples, and measurements acquired on several field trips will be analyzed, and the results recorded in maps, sections, and reports throughout the course. And of course, this is the calendar description that was standing from prior to fall 2020, when the course was delivered in person. And so the focus in fall 2020 was really to try to retain as much of this as possible, given the remote setting and given the impossibility of doing our regular field trips, like the example shown on the slide. So some highlights of the in-person course delivery from this are weekly field trips for the first 8 weeks of term. And then it gets cold and dark, so we move to indoor labs for 4 weeks to do some other more advanced analysis with that data. There are class demonstrations and practical exercises throughout the course, which emphasize the learning of the field methods and skills, which is really the core focus of the course. There's also guest lectures that we bring in from grad students and other professors in the department. So the second year students start to get to know the community of the department, which is very important. And of course, a group term project about the geology of the Kingston area, where the GEOE and GEOL students, the geological engineering and the geological science students, start to work together and build those cross-disciplinary relationships. There are 9 course learning outcomes, or CLOs, for this course, and I'll highlight a few of, or highlight the contents of them, starting with planning and conducting field investigations. The students develop facility with basic lab and field techniques. They start to categorize and compare rocks at different scales and understand the basic principles of historical geology to solve geological and engineering problems with incomplete or sparse data in 3 dimensions. They also demonstrate spatial and temporal reasoning on all scales as they analyze, synthesize, and discuss their data. They critically evaluate geological data and ultimately learn how to produce reporting and communicating their results with written reports and maps and cross-sections and other visual means of presenting a geological model. So there's a lot of things going on in this course. The course evaluation, this is from fall 2020, was fairly evenly distributed between lab assignments, a group project, and exams. The exams consisted of weekly quizzes and a final oral exam, as well as ongoing marks for professionalism and engagement in the course. So the remote delivery for fall 2020, this is illustrated here. I learned this storyboard presentation through the CTL Course Design Express last summer, thanks to Lauren Anstey. If you're familiar with these storyboards, you'll see I've selected the pyramid style, and weeks 1, 2, and 3 are on the bottom, and they really are the foundation of the course, where there's more emphasis on acquisition of knowledge through lectures and readings and watching videos. And as you progress up the pyramid to week 4, 5, 6, and then 7 is really the exam week, there's a bit less of the acquisition, more practice, more collaboration and production of knowledge, and in more of an advanced way as you would expect through the term. I'll also note that I integrated practice exercises and discussion throughout the term, and this seemed to work fairly well. So in this presentation, I'll focus on the skills-based learning elements and how they worked in this remote delivery. I was still able to maintain manual learning elements, so hands-on skills and an independent outdoor lab for students. There were new virtual components such as video demos and 3D photogrammetry models. And then a hybrid manual virtual experience was an immersive virtual field exercise using a game engine Unity software. So the field skills demo videos I created for this delivery of the course. So field demo 1 was on orienteering, how to use a compass and navigate around in space. And video 2 was how to use a compass to measure structural features on rocks. And these 2 skills are crucial to the outcomes and learning objectives of this course. Other field trip videos I created are this series of 5 videos from around the Kingston area, where I took the students to visit rock outcrops that they would normally see and visit on the weekly field trips. And so even though we didn't do the weekly field trips, they were still able to start to learn what the Kingston area geology looks like through a video lens. And the group report, the group project report for this term was still about the geology of the Kingston area. Although most of it was based on desktop studies, they were still able to use these field trip video information for that report. The lab skills videos I created were focused on where I had an overhead camera recording myself working through and talking through solutions to problem sets. And I provided the examples so the class could work through the exercises as while they were watching the video solution. So how to complete a geological map demo 1 and 2, and cross-section, how do you use stereo nets, and how do you solve a triple point problem. So very 3-dimensional spatial problems are linking all of these types of videos, and again, very core to this course. Another key aspect of this course is learning how to identify rocks. And so one thing we normally do is handle hand samples of specimens in the lab, but of course we weren't able to do that. We were not able to do that. So instead we used 3D photogrammetry models, some of which were uploaded and created from our department collection of rock samples, and others were available on the public domain, all through a Sketchfab database. And so through this, the students were still able to develop skills in rock observation and classification, but all of this was virtualized. And again, we were able to expand this use of 3D photogrammetry models to outcrop scale. So the students could, again, develop their skills of rock observation and classification in a virtualized way. And as you can see in these photogrammetry models, the students could independently interact with these models by rotating them and moving them around and zooming in to see different details of the rock as they wished. And so one of the ways I was able to link developing a manual skill set of outcrop sketching was to have the students sketch the outcrop and actually submit photographs of their sketches in their field books that they did at home. An independent outdoor lab that I did was a closed loop traverse where the students were sent out with their compasses outside and off of their computers to practice their skills in orienteering and navigation. So they were able to use Google Earth and their compass and pace and basically walk around in very precise orientations and distances to develop those skills, which are key for field mapping. In addition, for developing manual skills for how to measure structural measurements, so strike and dip and trend and plunge are 2 ways we measure planes and lines in 3D space, which are, again, core components to this course. The students for a lab submitted videos of themselves demonstrating how to measure, to conduct these measurements. And then one of my favorite things that I was able to integrate into this course is an immersive virtual field experience. This is a Unity-based video game, basically developed at the University of Leeds from the some of the geological sciences professors there. And the students here were able to, in a very immersive way, experience field navigation and traverse planning to wander around this map area and find outcrops, look at the field notes of the outcrops, take notes, and ultimately draw maps and cross sections of the geological models that they constructed as they walked through the area. And this is really the culminating knowledge and skill set that we aim to achieve the students learn by the end of this course. And so I was very, very pleased to be able to do this. Another important aspect of this course, as I mentioned earlier, is building community, because we're teaching geological sciences and geological engineering students. And this is the second year course. So it's the first time they're meeting their classmates, and they're going to be working with them through the rest of their degree programs. So particularly in this remote setting, I tried to develop ways that the students could interact. So at the very beginning, I used the gallery walk idea, again, learned through the CTL last summer, where the students posted a slide introducing themselves. So my slide is shown up on the right, for example. I asked sort of where they're from, why they're interested in geo, and some other fun facts. And through the course, I integrated or I created some interactivity with the readings by using perusal for generating discussions between students where they could ask questions and give answers. And also, because the lectures were pre-recorded, I gave a Google Docs interactive document where the students could ask questions, and I would, for both of these perusal and Google Docs platforms, I would go in and respond to students' questions regularly. In terms of synchronous interactivity, we had synchronous labs and tutorials on Zoom, and we used breakout rooms, limiting students to groups of 4 or so they could work together on the individual assignments. And then later on, for the latter half of the term, we had the group project where the students would work together, again, combining GOL and GEOE students to work together. So I'm very pleased that I was able to achieve all of the CLOs, or the course learning objectives, through the different elements of this course, although in a bit of a different way compared to past years. It all seemed to work out. And in terms of student feedback, overall it was quite positive. The 2 graphs on the left show that the students mostly strongly agreed that they learned a great deal from the lab assignments, and the practice exercises were helpful. Again, the lab assignments and the practice exercises being very core to the hands-on nature and skills-based objectives of the course. In terms of community development and also interdisciplinary work beyond their degree programs, I was very pleased that the students seemed to understand the connections between the science and engineering side of things. And also, because this course was delivered in the 6-week subterm as opposed to 12-week, I was very actually surprised to see such a large distribution of preference of the students, whether or not they liked that time frame. So you can see the results there. So in conclusion, all the CLOs were achieved in the remote fall 2020 offering. Overall, the student feedback was fairly positive during their first fully remote term. The interactive and group work elements, I think, were successful and important for starting to build that class community in this remote setting. And I do plan to use many of these resources and tools in future in-person course offerings. So thanks very much. I'd like to acknowledge my TAs, Giselle Rotherham and Adriana Taylor, colleagues from my department, Rob Harrop and Sherman, Mark Diedrichs and Dylan Leighton Matthews, and those from CTL, including Lauren especially, ETLT, Narissa, Eric et al., and also for more course-based or technical focus-based of learning, sharing between different instructors within geosciences through the NAGT was also very helpful. So thanks very much. I'd be happy to take any questions.